The periodic table. What is the periodic table? The periodic table is a table that contains all the elements known. The elements are organized in the columns and rows in order of increasing atomic number, starting from the one with the smallest atomic number, and that is hydrogen. Remember that the atomic number of an element is the number of protons in the nucleus of the atom. The periodic table consists of columns and rows. The columns are called groups and the rows are called periods. There are 18 columns and 7 rows in the periodic table, which means that we have 18 groups and 7 periods in the periodic table. The elements are arranged in a way that the properties recur in a particular pattern. This discovery was made by Dmitry Mendeleev, a Russian chemist, in the 19th century. So we credit Dmitry Mendeleev as a person that prepared the modern periodic table. Groups. There are 18 groups in the periodic table. 8 of them make up the main groups, and the other 10 are transition metals. The transition metals are found between columns 2 and 13. That means that elements in columns 3 to 12 are transition metals. Sometimes the main groups are numbered from 1 to 8. Following this numbering, the transition metals will be found between groups 2 and 3. Following this numbering as well, the number of electrons in the outermost shell of an element will be equal to the group the element belongs to. So members of group 1 will have 1 electron in the outermost shell, and members of group 6 will have 6 electrons in their outermost shell. For instance, phosphorus is in group 5. Phosphorus has 5 electrons in its outermost shell. Elements in the same group have similar chemical properties. This is because the chemical properties of an element depends on loss and gain of electrons, and having the same number of electrons in the outermost shell, the members of a particular group will behave in similar ways. Groups have spatial names. Alkali metals are group 1 elements. Group 2 elements are called alkaline earth metals. Group 13 is the boron group, and the carbon group is for group 14. Group 15 nitrogen group, group 16 chalcogens. Group 17 elements are known as halogens, and noble gases are group 18 elements. Groups 3 to 12 are known as transition metals. Periods. The rows in the periodic table are known as periods. There are 7 periods in the periodic table. The 2 rows that are usually placed below the main table are part of the main table. They're usually part of period 6 and 7. The rows are carved out to make the periodic table more compact. The period an element belongs to also tells us the number of electronic shells that are occupied by electrons. This means that if an element is in period 2, the number of energy levels that will be occupied by electrons would be 2. And if an element is in period 3, the number of energy levels that will be occupied by electrons would be 3. For instance, nitrogen is in period 2. Nitrogen has 2 energy levels. So let's see. Looking at the electronic structure for nitrogen, nitrogen being number 7 has 7 electrons, and when we do the electronic structure, that will be 2, 5. 2 electrons in the innermost shell and 5 electrons in the outer shell, giving us 2 energy levels occupied by electrons. The periodic law. The periodic law talks about the recurring pattern in properties seen in the periodic table. This recurring pattern is such that members of the same group have similar properties. They exhibit these properties because the number of electrons in the outermost shell is the same for members of the same group. Elements in the same period have the same number of energy levels occupied by electrons. This means that we can say that members of the same group have the same number of electronic shells. This law was developed by Dmitry Mendeleev in 1869. Let us recap. The periodic table organizes elements in order of increasing atomic number. The periodic table consists of columns and rows known as groups and periods. The modern periodic table was made by Dmitry Mendeleev in the 19th century. Elements in the same group have similar properties because they have the same number of electrons in their outermost shell. Elements in the same period have the same number of electronic shells. See you in our next lesson.